Okay, ready for you, Sister Foziya. We're transmitting.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're listening to the Parents Pod with me, Foziya Reddy, on Ramadan Radio 87.9 FM. And we're also online at ramadanradio.org and streaming live on Facebook. Today's program, we have something very interesting for you. And we've got a wonderful guest on. The title of our show today is Mindfulness for Parents, or Mindful Parenting. You know, often we hear from a variety of aged parents where, you know, they're talking about the challenges either with sleepless nights or dilemma with, giving permissions to go here or go there, or we've got challenges facing our children with peer pressure or just potty training, really feeling challenged as a parent. And this is what has prompted me to do today's show, is that I think that, you know, our parents, they need to be able to reach out for help, but also be able to think about it for themselves and think it through as to how they can help themselves. And this is where I'd like to introduce my guest, which is Yasmin Djendel. And Yasmin, welcome to the show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Barakallahu feek for having me, Foziya.
No, it's my pleasure. So tell us a brief outline of what you do, Yasmin, before, you know, I jump in and start saying, you know, this is what you're doing.
Okay. Alhamdulillah, Allah has guided me through many years of trials, and from the trials I discovered mindfulness and meditation, and they had an absolute profound impact on my own life. So now I teach it. I've developed an 8-week coaching program, and so I am a mindfulness life coach and stress management coach. They work hand in hand. And I have got, you know, my Facebook page and LinkedIn and YouTube videos. I have meditations on my YouTube videos for different situations that people may be going through. And I find it very beneficial for individuals. And it's really interesting that we can actually bring the aspect of parenting into mindfulness as well. So barakallahu feek.
No, absolutely. You know, I mean, I think one of the key things that you've just touched upon there is that you know, we need to remember that meditation. And I'm going to ask you to define what mindfulness is in a minute. But meditation, when people think about meditation, they think, oh no, that's not an Islamic thing to do, and you know, isn't meditation a practice that is outside the realms of Islam? So can you clarify what is the definition of mindfulness?
Okay, well, mindfulness was first brought into the Western world in the late 1970s by Professor John Kabat-Zinn, and he defines mindfulness as being purposefully in the present moment with curiosity and kindness without judgment. And the amazing, beautiful thing about it is it's not to do with religion, and it's not a new hippie agey thing. It's based on science. An 8-week mindfulness program has actually shown changes in the structure of the brain, and there's a lot of differences between brains of people who do meditate regularly, because it's actually the accumulation of meditation that has the long lasting effects of helping you to bring inner peace and calm and balance. It increases your self-confidence. There's so many benefits for an individual, you know, which will improve your health, your performance and concentration. It improves your spirituality, alhamdulillah, which is what is so beautiful for me, which is why I love teaching. I'm so passionate about what I do, because of it increases our spirituality, our connection. It strengthens our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it improves our relationships, which is also really important these days as well, to be in the present moment, to know how to listen mindfully and to speak mindfully. So it has a lot of benefits, and it's not a religious thing. There's a lot of science. There's actually thousands of scientific research based on mindfulness and meditation and how beneficial it can be in one's life.
Okay, that's really interesting. I mean, this is the thing. I myself, as a parenting coach and a teacher for many years, come across so many parents who, are just overwhelmed with their responsibility as being a parent, with just coping with day-to-day issues, and especially during COVID, I've seen so many moms and dads who are just, slipping into just this numbness of not being able to direct their children or even cope mentally for themselves, cope with just guiding their children to make the right choices, or even give them codes of behavior or support them through their own challenges, and even with the pressures of social media, and parents are just overwhelmed with the barrage of challenges that they're facing. And especially that, I think, with the new era of parenting in the digital age, parents are just sort of like, they feel that they're not equipped to be able to guide their children or navigate what they should do and what they shouldn't do. But this is causing masses of stress in parents. So what, I often sit down and I think, right, okay, stress, is it related to the fact that parents are not empowered, or is it related to the fact that they're just overwhelmed with so many problems, or is it they've got too many responsibilities and parenting is another one at the end of the day? What does stress look like, in parents? What does stress, what can we describe stress as?
I think what's really important about what you've just mentioned there is that we need the tools to cope with stress. And mindfulness and meditation, they give you tools and techniques to deal with stress and to build your resilience to life's ups and downs and the difficulties that we have with our children. Because what's very beautiful about it, it allows us to put a space between, instead of having a habitual reaction to a situation, it allows us to put a wise space and have a wise response to a situation. And that's very beautiful, because we actually become very aware with practice. We become very aware of our inner experience. And that's an amazing feeling as well, which is why there's a lot of emphasis when I teach my mindfulness is, a lot of emphasis to be aware of bodily sensations. And this is where, like, what does stress look like? I mean, for different people, it will look different for everybody. It might mean, an increased heart rate or sweaty palms, or, you begin to feel heat in your face. There's many different reactions to stress. And like I said, everybody will have a different reaction. But what it helps us to do, to be mindful, is to become better aware and become curious and actually interested in the bodily sensations during difficult experiences. And this will really help us to deal with difficult situations with our children, because our bodies and brains, they're wired to react to high stressful situations, and as a safety net. And it's a good thing, because we can act without thinking sometimes. If you're crossing the road and there's a car, you're not paying attention, your instincts will actually just help you to jump backwards, react like that. But the thing is, what's happening now is we are really telling our brains that we are in this continuous state of danger, and the brain and the body can't cope with that, because all the time, and this is how it damages our health, because all the time you're releasing chemicals that are adrenaline and cortisol, and for these to be released, you need to release them in a type of action. And if you're not, then the chemicals build up in your organs, and that's when it has such a detrimental effect on our health.
See, this is the thing. I mean, it's really, really interesting that you're saying that, because I think I hear from mums that, when they're not able to diffuse a situation, whereby siblings are arguing, or their youngest child is having this breakdown or tantrums, they get into this feeling of I'm not a good enough mother or a father. I need to, I'm not able to deal with the stresses of being a parent. Therefore, like the natural reaction is to just sort of either lash out, and that add more fuel to the fire, in an emotional manner, in an uncontrolled manner, or just walk away, just completely, detach yourself from the situation and just think, well, their children, they'll sort it out. It's just a stage, it will pass, and not actually deal with it as well. So both reactions have negative impacts on the children and the family, and those are not positive traits of being a good parent. Although that they, we've all been in that situation. Like, I think there's been times when we've all felt that, okay, that particular situation, we've not coped with it well. But how can mindfulness help you at that moment? That there's these two young people in my house that having this heated debate or conversation. It's getting really, really, sort of tense. I'm not able to interject properly. How can mindfulness help me there in that situation?
Okay. Yes. There's two sides to this, really. There's one of how do we cope as a parent in that situation, and the other thing is it's very important. I can't stress in how important it is to teach our children mindfulness skills. Okay, because if we can teach them the mindfulness skills, then they wouldn't be getting into those arguments anyway. It would also help them to deal with their emotions, to regulate their emotions, for them as well to become more in tune to how they're feeling. But obviously, as a parent, first of all, it is easy to lose control and flip our lid. It happens to all of us. We let our emotions control our reactions. But this can actually be really scary to kids. And I remember something I did years ago, Foziya, was I looked in the mirror and I mimed shouting at my daughter, and when she was a toddler, and I was really shocked about how really ugly I looked. That really made me think. That made me become so mindful of how do children perceive their parents, and of course we are the role models, and if we can control our emotions, we are then teaching our children how to respond as well when they get triggered.
So you're talking about emotional literacy there, isn't it, in that whole idea of taming the nafs, getting children to sort of step back in themselves and take a deep breath and just re-look at the situation without being so emotionally charged, but I guess there must be techniques to this. What techniques can you tell us about that would help us to instill this good mindful behavior, if you like?
I think really is managing our own emotions and behaviors is the key to teaching kids how to manage theirs. And in situations, it really is so beneficial if you look at the situation objectively. Don't let your emotions get involved, and just look at it as if you're just standing back from the situation. And that really does help us, first of all, to regulate and our emotions, and then it gives us a space as well. It actually gives us a space on how we want to respond.
Right. So don't be reactionary, firstly.
Yes, the best thing to do if a child is having a tantrum or something is just do nothing. I think
really they're saying, how do I do that, because they're screaming. I'm in control. I'm supposed to be taking charge of the situation. How can I do nothing?
There's many things that we can do. The first thing would be to just notice our own feelings. First of all, when we're in conflict with a child, just if you can just imagine, if you could just think back, the listeners, of a situation when you were frustrated with your child, what feelings did you feel? Was it anger? Was it shame? Was it embarrassment? If you just try to experience those emotions now, and then you keep practicing, I call it like a sensation tracker, and you keep coming back and tuning into your sensations. Okay, and this will help you then to notice when you're being triggered. And of course, all our kids know exactly those triggers, and they use them as well. You know, that raw nerve that you have on your tooth, they're all very aware of them. So, because I mean, they know them. So why don't we? Once we're more aware of them, then we can use them as, you know, the first step to becoming aware.
Right. Perfect.
And because that is the key to mindfulness. If I could, you know, I could talk about it for days and days and days, but if I was just to sum it up in one word, it would be self-awareness.
Right.
And having that awareness of our emotions and what triggers us. And by keep doing this, it actually will, you know, for us as well, it sort of, you know, on an individual level as adults, it lowers the volume of past traumas as well, whatever we've been through in the past, because that can sometimes, it does affect us as adults, whatever we've been through as children.
Yeah. I think that's a key point. If I could just interject there before you go on to the tips, because what I was going to say is that sometimes we go into auto mode where we parent our children the way we were parented, and you know, if we and you do this subconsciously. You know, if you were one of the children who, you know, were at the receiving end of a telling off whenever you did something, or you know, it was a, you know, a particular type of punishment, or you know, certain things that were said or done at the time of like, you know, them, you know, something being broken, or you know, something's happened. You then, what you do is when you then have your children, you then automatically fall into this pattern, unintended, you know, in most respects, that you just react in the same way. You do what was already seen and learned by you, and that's not in the sort of the time and the era that we're living in right now, may not necessarily be the right thing to do, especially when we are during this COVID time. We're in our homes, we're secluded maybe from family and friends and support. We don't have the outdoor space, for example, for the children to go into, where this could be a way of diffusing the heightened issues or tensions in the house. How can we not fall into that? How can we not just do what our parents did?
Really, by becoming more aware, becoming more mindful of how we are reacting. I was listening to a halakha the other day, and a brother said to the sheikh, my parents always say to me that I'm worthless, and that I would never have any use in my life. I would never be successful. And he actually, the son said to his parents, why do you say these things to me? And the parents just said, because I was spoken to like that.
Yes.
And I think we have to, words are very, very powerful. And it's better because we will always be our children's inner voice. So we have to be mindful of how we are speaking to our children, and give them the confidence and make them proud of their small wins, celebrate their small wins with them. There's so many other things that we can say to our children, and insulting them is so detrimental to their own self-esteem, their self-value, and their self-confidence is very detrimental. And so they will then, you know, probably, it has so many different effects on them, isn't it, Foziya? Like they will get in with the wrong crowds. They will look for love somewhere else.
Absolutely.
And we don't want them to do that. We want them to have that security at home, and not to feel anxious at home. And by bringing, you know, mindfulness into your own life, it will help you to find that inner peace for yourself as well. It will help you to find calm. It will help you to respond wisely instead of reacting habitually, or, you know, with anger or with words. It just allows you to put that space, space to think.
Yeah, perfect. So tell us, Yasmin, tell us, what strategies would you advise we can adopt to become a mindful parent?
Okay, is, you know, really, like I said, like, to stay mindful, notice our own emotions, and as well just let them pass without acting on them, because then we model emotional regulation, and then our children will learn from watching us.
Perfect.
Some other things, I mean, there's so many things that we can do. It's like, really, okay, so listen to your child with full attention. You know,
Right.
it's easy that we become distracted with, you know, maybe getting out of the house on time, you know, getting out of the house on time, getting the dinner on the table, or answering, you know, a text message or something like that. We really actually need to understand what our children are really trying to say to us.
Yeah.
And it could be anything. Like, it could be, you know, the detachment, the insecurity, they don't want to leave the house because they love us. You know, not wanting to, just something simple like not wanting to be in the pushchair. But by listening with full attention, it helps us to understand and respond, you know, to our children's needs.
And it's interesting that you said that, Yasmin, because I was actually just speaking to a parent the other day, and I was saying how, you know, because often, you know, the younger set of parents now, you know, that are in their sort of mid to late 20s, they've got their headphones in 99.9% of the time. Their 3-year-old has come along and saying something. Maybe the headphones are off. I mean, I find this thing where, you know, there's this comfort of having your own space, so people sort of put the headphones in. And that to a, if I was, and I was thinking, if I was a 3-year-old child and I saw my mum with the headphones in, I just think straight away, it's like putting your fingers in your ears. She's not listening to me, you know.
Yes.
So I think as parents, I would definitely say, as much as you can when your children are with you, do your best not to be engaged in, you know, in your own pursuits, whether it be listening to an audiobook or watching something, you know, which of benefit. Might be, I don't know, maybe it'll be like a recipe you're wanting to look at, or listen to a halakha. Even do it on you know, in a way where they can also listen into the halakha, so that it's not you're secluding yourself from your child, because that being present, and you know, and again, this is a practice of the of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the sunnah, that when someone talks to you, what do? You turn yourself around, you look at them, you make eye contact, and you show them, I'm paying full attention to you and you're important to me.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, that's very important. Yeah.
And sorry, yes, so what was your next the third strategy?
Yes, but I just like to pick up on a point that you just made as well about our dear Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because the more I did study about, and I'm still studying and learning about mindfulness meditation, the more I connected it to our deen, and how it, without having too much of an intention for it, it does help to develop a better character because of that awareness that you have. The awareness of how other people increases empathy. And our dear Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he must have had the most mindful of characters, you know, with the mindful speaking, the mindful listening, looking into people's eyes. Every single person that was ever knew him, they thought they were the most important people in his life. And I think we need to do that for our children. So
Agreed.
the other thing, yes, I mean, the other thing that I would say is, like, you know, accept your child and yourself, like, without judgment. And this is one of the key things of mindfulness, is being non-judgmental, having an acceptance of what is. And you know, I do not, you know, I know that the struggles are real and that parenting is exhausting. I've been through it. I've got 4 children and a grandchild, alhamdulillah. You know, but there's many moments when, you know, we do judge our children, and even we judge ourselves so harshly. I think just having an acceptance of feelings, it's not, mindfulness is not a passive way of dealing with things. It's not that we have to like different situations. It's about just being aware of our own feelings and experiences, you know, having an acceptance of all feelings, even the negative ones. You know, it's important that we acknowledge them, you know, and have a feeling, you know, to respond with patience as well, and not to get frustrated or angry. And just, I mean, knowing, yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, it's really interesting that you've just said that, because I think I remember, you know, you and I, we've had a lot of conversations on parenting and discussing things like, you know, oh, you know, I did this and I'm wondering whether I did it right, and oh, I think I was, you know, you know, I flew off the handle really quickly, and I'm finding, you know, I remember having conversations saying, you know, with all of my lot, you know, this, me thinking, well, I think I'm shouting too much today, or I've spent this week just really raising my voice, and I'd caught myself doing it. You know, it wasn't that somebody else came in to say, oh, I heard you telling your children off, or I could hear that you're not sounding when you're with your children, you're not sounding really upbeat or happy. It was that I had caught myself. And I think that's a really important part of being a reflective parent, is that
Yes.
maybe at the end of the day, it's about sitting down with yourself and thinking, I'm the key person. I'm the murabbi who is the first madrasa to this child. I've got the responsibility, and albeit a heavy responsibility, but a beautiful one, to raise the next generation of Muslims, the next generation of servants of Allah, somebody who's going to have a beautiful character close to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that doesn't mean that the child's character is going to be perfect. um yes, we have to do a certain amount of molding and correcting, but it's how we do it, isn't it? And sometimes it's about reflecting on yourself, and knowing that actually when I'm in this frame of mind, I tend to do this, and when I'm in that frame of mind, I tend to do that. So I think I'm sort of understanding what you're saying, is that really it's about tuning into you, not just focusing on my child's got these behavioral issues, or they've got these problems, that they're a teenage issue that they're not coping with. It's more about, how can I now be the tool that's going to make a positive change, rather than add more fuel to the fire, as it were.
Yes, I think this is really important, because again, going back to detaching ourselves, when our children are going through things, it isn't about us. And I know that it's parenting is very much about self-sacrifice and always, being responsive. But again, mindfulness helps us to be proactive and responsive about situations. But again, I think it's important that it's not about us, it's about what are they going through. And if we can just pay attention, I mean, I'm going to go on to this tip in a little while, about how we can observe, for us to actually be more mindful and observe our children's reactions. But just, and as well about the mindful listening, that goes two ways as well. Like you were saying, Foziya, mindful listening is paying attention on purpose, non-judgmentally, right, with curiosity. That's the meaning of mindfulness, that I would define it on a mindfulness program. But when we're actually being mindful of our children, it's like look into their eyes, pay attention to their body sense, the body language, but as well, right, listening to ourselves as well. And to be honest, parents that shout bring up children who shout, and you have a whole family of shouting, and then it ends up who can shout the loudest,
right,
as opposed to giving people a bit of space, letting children speak, even if you don't agree with what they're saying. And sometimes we do predict what they're going to say. This is another thing about mindful listening. Let's not predict what they're going to say. Let's not prejudge what they're going to say. Let us listen attentively with our full attention, and let them finish what they're going to say. Because sometimes, and I've found myself doing it too often, we do prejudge, and then we can jump in, and then we've ruined the whole relationship. So this is something else that's very beautiful about mindful listening, to do it with all of the conditions of mindful listening, that we can allow our children to say what they want to say, even if we're not agreeing with them at the time. And as well to just imagine our children's feelings as well, and try to sort of match their response. Imagine what they're actually going through, and try to respond in with love and compassion. I know sometimes it can be very difficult, but this is what they need from us.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, just you saying that reminded me of the time where I know that my granddaughter, she was looking at a spider, or an insect outside, and it's about discovering it through their eyes in a positive way. And even and again, if they are facing challenges, it's also about listening with fresh ears, not with, like you said, with this prejudgment of, actually, I know how this conversation is going to go, I know where it's leading to, I know what he or she wants me to say, and then it becomes quite robotic in that way, and you feel you're not really nurturing or developing the shakhsiyah of that child. You're just sort of ticking a box. I'm a parent. I've said what I needed to say, and the rest is up to them now, type thing. So I think definitely, being that mindful parent and having a positive tone to what you're doing as a parent. So even though it's a situation which is highly charged, is thinking to yourself, well, let's be calm about this. And I think mindfulness is about taking those deep breaths and calming yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually aligning yourself that, look, Allah is the one who's going to help me in this situation, and giving yourself that confidence that, yes, I can do this.
Yes, and again, it's going back to there is no right or wrong in parenting, because at the end of the day, our children, they have to be prepared for life. And it's not all going to, it's not always going to be a, bed of roses, or we can wrap them in cotton wool, because the big wide world is mean. And it doesn't mean that we'd be mean to our children, but we've just got to be able to, this just brings me on to my other point of like managing our own feelings and reactions. It doesn't mean that we are not going to get angry or frustrated, but what it does mean is that we can pause between reacting in stressful situations, because children, they don't know how to manage their feelings and emotions. And we could just be fueling them instead of giving them and ourselves the space,
right?
To just be present, just take that deep breath.
Yes.
And then you can choose to respond and not react out of control or anger or say things you're going to later regret.
Indeed. It's so important. So Yasmin, say I'm in that situation. Tell me what I need to do. I'm in a situation where there's a highly charged, parental and child clash. What do I need to do?
Okay, like I mentioned earlier, first of all, it's better not to react. Separate the children and give them a chance to calm down. First of all, to deep breathe, because when we deep breathe, we give instructions then to the amygdala, which is the fight or flight area response in our brain. So right. When we deep breathe, we allow that area of the brain to calm down, and then more information gets to the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for our executive function, consequences, learning, memory, all of the, those important functions that the prefrontal cortex is responsible for. So just by taking a deep breath, it sends messages from the brain to the body that it's okay to relax. And so that would be the first step, is just take those deep breaths, because then more information gets to the prefrontal cortex and you'll be able to sort out the situation, in a responsive and not a reactive manner.
Perfect. And so that it's about doing this and practicing this, no doubt, because obviously it's not something that you just do on one occasion, and then think, right, you've got this, you've been able to bag it, and you can cope now. It's something you've got to practice, isn't it, to be able to master it?
Yes, it definitely does take a lot of practice. It definitely does. And this is where the actual meditation comes into it. Right. Where when we do meditate, even, to meditate for 5 minutes a day, for us as parents, we as anybody anyway, whether you're at work, at home, or whatever your daily life entails, just take the 5 minutes out of your daily busy schedule to be still, to do nothing, just to be you, just to be. Take some deep breaths. Just focus your attention on the breathing and the sensations as the air goes through your nostrils and the back of your throat, or just bring your attention to your chest rising and falling, and pay attention to your inner experience, because that tells us a lot about ourselves. What are the feelings? Where do you feel the stress? Where do you feel the anxiety? And like I've mentioned before, people just, have it in different places in their body. And it's important that you find out where yours is, because that is the first step to the trigger. And then that will alert you to, okay, I can feel this anger or frustration building up. How do I need to just respond here? Let me take a deep breath. And it's okay to pause. People think we have to react straight away. It's sort of, maybe you're going to be judged for not being intelligent or something like this. But believe me, by taking a deep breath, you will have the most intelligent of responses. And this is what we need to model to our children. And this is emotional regulation. that we will model to our children.
Perfect. And again, I think, isn't it so, Yasmin, that if you're more composed as a parent, then that oozes that same calmness that the child then can draw upon. It's like it's like a magnet. They draw to you through seeing you and being calm and being able to sort of relate to them in a calm manner, and then they react in the same way as well, rather than like you said, if it's just constant sort of battles and reactions, then there's that the messages sent out to the child is that emotional responses should be of that nature, and with mindfulness, we use it to bring ourselves to respond in a collective, calm manner, and choosing our words properly rather than just firing out responses.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it can be challenging, but the most important part of mindfulness is actually being able to find that calm space in the heat of the moment. We practice finding the space by focusing our attention on our body and breath, because our emotions and thoughts and feelings, they precede our actions and behaviors, and we're going to get judged for our actions and behaviors. So that's why it's really important. The emotions will show themselves as bodily sensations, and then we can, we will respond in a better way.
Right, no, absolutely.
That opportunity to just slow down. It puts that space, because when we deep breathe, there's a physiological change in our body that it decreases the automatic response or reflective responses, and it actually increases the abilities, like I mentioned before, the abilities of the prefrontal cortex to deal with the situation, and it just leads to a calmer mind, and you find space to sit with the emotion. We're just able to pause and experience the emotion as bodily sensations.
Yeah, absolutely.
It allows your brain to have a distraction as well, which gives you the opportunity to have a different choice.
Yeah, and as well, like, I think that often in the course of a day, I remember when my children were little, it's like, mashallah, with all 8 of them, it was, they're taking turns to do something, or I was forever diffusing a situation, or forever speaking to this one about what choices they're going to make, and how what's the best choice, and you're as a parent, it's a constant thing throughout the day, and I find mums will come up to me and say, I'm just so tired mentally, I can't relax, I feel like I'm on duty all day, and but we were speaking about this, about how there's actually studies being done about mindfulness parenting, and how the effects of it are really, really positive.
Yeah, subhanallah, honestly, it's the one important factor that sort of, how do I say, it's an important predictor of success. And there's been a study done at Harvard University. It actually went on for a very long time.
Wow.
Yeah, Harvard, they conducted a research that tracked over 1,000 people, and actually from birth until they were 32 years old. And what they were looking for basically what makes someone successful. What are the common characteristics or traits, that have been seen in successful individuals? And it's amazing, because it wasn't their race or the language they spoke, and it wasn't about the neighborhood that they grew up in, and it wasn't as well about how much money their parents had, or even how well they did on standardized testing, and it wasn't even about their IQ, Foziya. It's so amazing. It was all about self-control, and it was all about the emotional intelligence, childhood self-control. It predicts, health and success. And it's more important than intelligence and social class, because those that were successful, those who had, and success as well, it doesn't just mean, financial success, but it was those with good careers and financial stability, loving relationships, and physical health as well. They're the ones that could focus and pay attention. And most importantly, they were able to regulate their emotions. They were the ones that practiced mindfulness.
Oh wow,
because
mashallah.
yeah, it really is the foundation of all other learning, because it, it does teach you how to focus and concentrate. And again, there was amazing documentary that I was so inspired by it, and I would recommend all parents to watch it, and teachers and head teachers. It's an hour documentary, and it's called Room to Breathe. And it's
Mashallah.
based in a school in America, in a very down and out San Francisco. And the children really are victims of the society and
Right.
left to, their own devices or whatever. They would have ended up just like their parents, with, addictions, abuse, parents in prison, childhood pregnancies, all of this sort of stuff. But what they did, this particular class was so unruly, and
Right.
the teachers had given up on them, and they were like, the whole class was very, very difficult to teach. So what they did, they got this very, very patient woman in to teach them mindfulness techniques. And subhanallah, Foziya, by the end of the term, I mean, the teacher, that the lady, the instructor, she had such a hard time, really, because I mean,
Subhanallah.
excuse me, but they were, they would laugh, joke, throw paper, make rude
Yeah.
noises. They were very, very unruly, trip anybody up that walked past. And you could see she was so patient. But by the end of the term, they were all sitting there with their eyes closed, meditating,
Well, what an
because they
achievement.
all absolute huge achievement. And what comes more is there was less truancy, they had higher grades, there was less bullying, and there was more empathy and compassion between them. And then those same children that were heading in a bad direction, they were given such good opportunity. They were then as well, they were then teaching the younger years on that, that mindfulness and meditation is such an amazing practice. And this is what is so amazing about it, because what mindfulness exercises, they're designed to train your brain, to have focused attention and increased emotional regulation. There's different activities: mindful listening, mindful cooking, mindful arrivals, mindful seeing. There's so many activities that we can teach our children that we don't have time to go into here. But it's just a way of engaging in the present moment, without
Yes.
attachment and without judgment as well. And it, there, like as I mentioned before, mindfulness is grounded in over 30 years of scientific study. There's literally thousands of studies that show that mindfulness practices decreases depression, anxiety, and stress, and as well, like, it increases, our overall feeling of well-being and happiness and
Mashallah.
focus.
Yeah.
And it helps us to really enjoy, our lives and our children and our ibadah with, with more joy and happiness. And
Yes.
that's
SubhanAllah.
something else, all these, there's so many byproducts of practicing mindfulness and meditation that we can enjoy, and that we would really enjoy our children a lot more. I've got my grandson staying with me now, and just the other day I was watching him just look at a pen. That's mindfulness in action. I was like, wow, my 2-year grandson is practicing mindfulness, and just looking at the pen at different angles, and he was there for a good few minutes. I'm just looking at it at different angles. And this helps child, when we can ask good questions, when we can say to, maybe a child, just, there's so many simple activities that we could do. But it's important that children have this time of peace and quiet, and
Yes.
to become curious.
Yeah.
But it will help us to enjoy our children a lot more, be in the present moment with them,
Yep.
because we miss so many wonderful moments by being stressed, thinking what's next. We need to be in the present moment, because as we all know, Foziya, the past is gone, we can't change it, but the future has so many opportunities, and it all starts in the present moment. And sometimes when our brains, our minds have gone on this mental time travel, we don't appreciate the wonderful and pleasant things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with in the present moment.
Yes, you put it so well, Yasmin. And I was just thinking that, in my sort of educational brain, I was thinking it's all about taming the nafs, and it's through mindfulness you can do it in such a calm way and such a beautiful way, which naturally alludes to the submission of Allah. And
Yes.
you're doing it in a more of a like you said, in the moment, but you're in control of your own emotions as well. So you're not conflicted where you're trying to tell the child to be calm, but you're doing it in this calm down sort of in your own voice. You're not alluding to being calm at all. So the mindfulness, it does help us to sort of set ourselves in the right frame of mind to be able to do the tarbiyah that we need to do. And may Allah help all the parents out there, because it's not an easy task. And we have new challenges as we go through time, and this is a promise of Allah. As we go closer to the Yawm al-Qiyamah, we have different challenges with raising our children, and may Allah put barakah in what you're doing. But Yasmin, quickly before we finish the program, because this hour's gone so quickly, mashallah.
Yes, subhanallah.
How can people find you? Where are you on social media? And tell us quickly a bit about your coaching program.
Okay, barakallah fiqh. There was, we could sort of carry on a lot longer with different activities. Yeah. Okay, so I can be found on my Facebook page, Yasmin Djendel, and my surname is spelled with a DJ, so Djendel. And you can find me on LinkedIn, on YouTube. I have mindfulness meditation videos, and there's quite a few on there. And the first one I would recommend was really, what is mindfulness? What is meditation? What is mindfulness-based stress reduction? Because my 8-week one-on-one coaching program, it's a very intense coaching program, and I work one-on-one and deal with my clients, with their particular struggles that they're going through. It actually, I would teach you sort of new skills that will allow you to cultivate a different way of working with your mind. And as I said, it's based on mindfulness-based stress reduction and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. And it's absolutely amazing. I love teaching it. I give, my clients support and gentle guidance, and accountability as well is very important. And so, if you want to get in touch with me, maybe just LinkedIn would be an excellent place. Have a look through my previous posts. I have got lots of posts. I covered, mindful wudu, mindfulness, how mindfulness had a profound impact on my own prayer, because our prayer is a form of meditation, because we want to notice when our mind has wandered and then bring it back to the focus of attention. And, trying to, lots of posts, information about a work-life balance, which is really important as well, because especially in these days, whether you're working from home or working away, we need to get the balance. And I would just say my top tip there of finding work-life balance is be where your feet are. If you're at work, put your mind is at work. And if you're at home, your mind is at home. And just have the proper times. Make sure you're sitting down with your children, eat mindfully, take that opportunity to communicate with your children, try to predict, situations, so that, you can communicate properly with your children, and ask them, how did that make you feel? What would you do differently next time? Again, like you said, Foziya, about being a reflective parent.
Yeah, and listen, just listening well,
Yes.
And because it's always that thing that you feel so much better when you feel that somebody is giving you their full attention, but they've understood you. You're on the same wavelength, and we've got to be on the same wavelength of our children if we're going to impact them, if we're going to make a change in their character and nurture their love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is what it's all about. Mindfulness, it's always in the realms of nurturing children that will submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to be able to regulate their own nafs so that it will submit. So you're giving them the tools. Once you've embodied the tools and you're showing them the tools of mindfulness and submitting, you then show them how they can do the same. And I think again, you and I, we could talk endlessly. Just to close, jazakallah khairan to our listeners, for tuning in and listening to me, your guest, your presenter, sorry, Foziya Reddy. And obviously, again, you can tune in and then continue listening to the exciting programs that Ramadan Radio has scheduled on 87.9 FM. Till next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan.